Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Batman Book Club. We're going to be doing something a little special today. I have my co-host Jake here with me today. You might know him from the famous Drunken Idaho podcast, where we discuss some Dune stuff. But I've been doing videos on Batman by myself, just going through some of the modern continuity. But Jake had a great idea to do maybe some of the, well, this isn't a lesser known story, this is a very, very popular story, but just some of the off-kilter ones, some of the ones that aren't really continuity, just kind of standalone graphic novels. So we're going to be talking about Arkham Asylum, A Serious House on Serious Earth. Do you know why he called it that?
I don't exactly know why he called it that. I'll be damned.
Like, is there a reason for it? Does it mean something?
Probably. It's Grant Morrison.
Yeah, because
there's always some form of meaning, but it's one of those kind of almost Jodorowsky forms of its interpretation. So it could be fucking all over the place. Right. It's like it's amorphous.
Yeah.
It could mean one thing to somebody and something completely different to anybody else.
So this was wild that you suggested this one because I think we have one of the same editions. Yeah. I had the trade paperback, the soft cover that was I guess it was like the 15th anniversary edition.
Yeah.
And it has like the full script in the back, and I didn't go through all that, to be honest. I didn't go through.
I definitely did.
I know. For some reason, like, I could read a book, but when I'm reading a comic and then there's like, it's a script, but it's basically like prose in the background. I'm like, I can't do that. I can't.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this was interesting to go back to because honestly, I don't think I've read this in 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
So
since I bought it, I guess, or I don't even know. It could have been. It was probably more than 10 years. Actually, it was probably way more than 10 years.
Really?
I don't know the exact year that I bought it, but yeah. It was fun to go back to.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'm a little smarter now because I think when I first read it, I was like, "What the fuck was that?"
It's a weird one, dude. It's a fucking weird story, especially for Batman, because it came in at this time where shit was just starting to get darker in comics. Yeah. Like it was coming from that Adam West kind of sterile. I don't know, but it was bullshit. Everything was happy and.
Well, actually, you know what? What year did this come out?
I can't remember the exact year. I want to say late 80s. I want to say 88, 89.
Because it could almost be a Vertigo book.
Oh,
if you think about it. And I know, I'm pretty sure the editor in chief or whatever she was, Karen Berger. Karen Berger was the one who kind of, shepherded this.
Oh, dude, she shepherded in Neil Gaiman's with the Sandman.
Yeah. And all the UK writers.
Oh, absolutely. Al Moore, basically Vertigo, or what would become Vertigo.
So I think actually, are you familiar with the Legends of the Dark Knight series?
No,
that was one of the spin-off series because obviously you have Batman, you have Detective Comics, and then you have they made a spin-off which was Legends of the Dark Knight, where it was kind of covering his early years, so anybody could tell a 4 or 5 part story about just an earlier year of Batman's life.
Sure.
And Grant Morrison actually wrote a story called Gothic in that, and I want to say it predates this story because I used to think that this was his first, Batman story.
I think it was technically. I think that's what I read about it. This was technically his first.
So it was either one of the two. I guess I should have done my research on that. Not that it matters for the story.
Fuck that. We're just
but he also had another story, Gothic. I actually have the hardcover of it, but
I don't think I've even read.
I got to go back and look that up. But anyway, we're here to talk about Arkham Asylum, and I think we're gonna have. Which is good. I think we're going to have some differing opinions.
Oh, definitely.
On this.
It's one of those stories that kind of lends itself to that. It's all imagery. It's all philosophical and kind of it's all over the place, man. This is a weird story.
Right.
It's deep as fuck, but it really on paper, if you really look at the story and what it is and break it down step by step, it's very simple.
Yeah.
It's like one of the more
it's a very simple premise.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just go through it a little bit. It's very simple. It starts off. Well, I mean, you have two separate things going on.
Right.
So you have the story that's taking place, within Batman's time period,
right.
and then you have the Amadeus Arkham
back
story.
In 1901, that whole thing. Yeah,
right,
which is weird.
Yeah, and the Batman story is very simple. Jim Gordon comes to him. He's like, "Shit, bro,
shit's going down."
Yeah, shit's going down in Arkham. Joker's basically in control of everything. All the other guys are out too.
The simple premise of the nuts took over the nut house.
Exactly.
And we need Batman to really solve this fucking problem.
Yeah. So before we, I guess, go into some of the, story elements of it and everything, some of the intricacies, just tell me and everyone why you picked this, like for doing, to do this first.
Right. I would say it. So it's. I've always loved Grant Morrison. I kind of have a bias for Grant Morrison, especially just his interpretation of Batman. I think because that really started with Arkham Asylum, and then obviously when you read that, you're like, what the fuck else is this guy written? And you're like, all right, Doom Patrol, and kind of the Invisibles, and all that crazy. Dude, he is just a wacky fucking dude. And he's super into that fucking magic shit, and, that whole aspect of things. Again, it's a lot like Jodorowsky. He's kind of the comic book version of what Jodorowsky is to films. Just a fucking odd dude, but brilliant. And this one it's so simple, but what it tries to imply and just some of the themes, the ideas behind Arkham Asylum it's deep as fuck. There's just a lot going on there. They're trying to break down a character. Again, this is coming at a time where there was that shift going on in comics, where it's just stuff like the Dark Knight with Frank Miller, Dark Knight Returns, and The Watchmen with Alan Moore was coming out, and just that whole UK movement, and just things were getting darker. And this is kind of one of the final nails in the coffin into that transition. Well, we turn into the 90s, and you had the fucking bullshit with Image Comics and Todd McFarlane, and it was just really cool art, nothing going on with the story. It looked good, but it was fucking kind of terrible.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have great writers, so... then you get something like this, which we can mention as well. Dave Mckean does the art, most famous for, he did a lot of Sandman stuff, right?
Absolutely, he did the covers, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's when everybody goes into even if you go into a Barnes & Nobles, you're going to see his covers
somewhere
on Sandman.
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
especially. So.
He was brilliant, and this is easily my favorite comic book visually, aesthetically. It's amazing. It's right up my alley. It's what I want. It's just amazing.
When I know what I'm getting into with this, and I know going back to it after all these years, I know it's going to be dark, and it's funny because I've been reading a lot of the main continuity stuff, just going through that and doing videos on it, and it has that balance of, you could tell it was getting a little bit darker, but it still had that balance of it was still fun, it was still light for the DC universe with the regular Batman stories. I had to kind of go into a different mode with this because I know it's not supposed to be. I just thought of it as a Vertigo book, and there happens to be a character named Batman in it, and you know what I mean. It was more of like a Lovecraftian version of Arkham, which is that comes from that Arkham. That they call it Arkham Asylum in the Batman continuity, but but I have, as much as I recognize the skill of the art and some of it is hard to follow for me, and I guess I'm just used to more, I don't know, regular sequential stuff where my eye flows, left to right,
something
and it's
more conventional.
Something more conventional, and a lot of this stuff is really off kilter, and a lot of it is very dark. I mean, I'm looking at it. I'm literally reading it yesterday, rereading it, and I'm moving the book up to my eye, up to my face, real close. I'm like, wait, I need a fucking magnifying glass to go through this.
But I think that's what the story lends itself to, and why it works for me in the way it does. This is not a straightforward story. If anything, it's a story that, in my eyes, can fit into almost any Batman continuity. It's just one of those stories because it's kind of just a nightmare. You know, you're living a nightmare that Batman might have. You know, that's why nothing really happens in this story. You know, he walks into Arkham Asylum. There's a problem going on in Arkham Asylum. You know, even down to, the Joker sharpening a pencil about to stab this woman.
And that's over the phone, right?
Yeah, and that's over the phone right there at the beginning. You know, and that never happens. Nothing happens in this story. He fights Killer Croc.
Yeah.
He's the only person that really sustains injury in this story. Obviously the trauma that Amadeus Arkham had to go through. You know, because he had just a fucking weird-ass upbringing. Yeah, he was one fucked up dude.
Yeah, you know what? I will say I enjoyed that part way more than back in the day because, as a younger guy picking up a Batman graphic novel, I want to get right to all the Batman stuff. I want to see him fight some villains. And then you get this backstory with Arkham.
Right.
And
that, I think, was a point to it as well. Because before he wrote about Arkham Asylum, Grant Morrison wrote about Arkham Asylum, all you really had about Arkham was that he killed a dude named Mad Dog. Or a Mad Dog killed his family.
Right.
That's it. That's really all you had about Amadeus Arkham. So this is a context book as well in a weird way. So it presents context, and at the same time, it's this bizarre, almost like phantasmagorical nightmare that Batman is living. As opposed to anything else. Really, nothing fucking happens. He confronts a couple of villains. He talks to the Joker busts his balls. He leaves Arkham Asylum, and everything kind of is restored back to the way it was. Sort of.
We'll get to that later, because I didn't really understand that. But one of the things that bothered me, to be honest, and I have Grant Morrison's whole Batman run that he did later on in his
Batman
career.
Incorporated.
Yeah, all that stuff. Batman and Son and everything. Mm-hmm. And for the most part, I like his run. Sometimes I don't like the way he writes Joker, where he's just a little too, I don't know. It's like, I don't know how to describe it, but you know what? It's perfect in this. It encapsulates it because I don't like, I don't know. I feel like another writer would never do this. And I guess it's kind of, you could say it's bold of him to do, but he literally smacks Batman's ass in this. Right. And the panel just looks so weird. Even from a dark, ominous artist like Dave McKean, he's like, you smacked my ass. And it's Batman. And I'm like, Batman. Oh. He's like, don't you ever do that again, Joker. And he's like, ooh, I love you, Batman. He does this thing where, well, I guess this is what I wanted to say. He does this thing where it's like, Joker actually loves Batman. Right. And I know a lot of people say that. It's like, they can't live without each other. It's just whatever.
It's a weird symbiosis.
Yeah, but he writes it like, no, I really like him. I want to fuck him. Mm. You're like, what? Mm-hmm. So that kind of throws me off a little bit, to be honest. But
I think my understanding is, I think I heard an interview with Grant Morrison where I think he originally wanted to write the Joker in Arkham Asylum dressed as a woman. Almost like a transvestite.
Right, and that's fine. I guess if you're doing, and I don't know if he ever said that. I'm guessing this is in his mind. It's out of continuity. It's just like his vision of Arkham as because it's like a horror story. It's like a horror book,
self-contained. That's for sure.
Which is fine.
No, I think that's perfect for the story.
Yeah,
because it really is a nightmare.
Right.
You're just kind of going through the motions with this story. It's not like you're compelled by any one thing. You're just interested in what's around that next corner as opposed to anything else because it kind of moves quickly. Once the story gets going and they kind of get the fundamentals of Amadeus Arkham and then what's also going on with Batman as soon as he gets to the asylum itself. You have the that what is it? The Feast of Fools. There's that whole thing where it's just a bunch of fucking weirdos out there. It's all discombobulated, kind of nonsense going on around the room. And then right from that, it's just like, all right, well, go on into Arkham. And that's basically what happens. Batman just kind of walks around. And
it's very surreal.
It's strange.
But the thing I don't understand is when he gets there, and I'm forgetting the nurse's name or whatever.
Yeah,
she's a decent part of this. of this story, but I don't know why there's a lot of Batman just kind of standing there and just letting Joker do whatever he wants. It's weird.
True.
He doesn't really go after him right away, well, at least from what I was interpreting, looking at the art. I read some of it last night and I read some of it this morning just to brush up on it.
Right.
Well, the rest of it, but yeah.
Well, I think there's something to that. Because Batman doesn't really do a whole lot of Batman-like things in this story.
No, I mean, I'll get there too, because I have some problems with that. And I don't know, I would love to ask Grant Morrison, because he does, for the most part, especially with a character like Superman, understands superheroes. He really knows the history of things. Yes. He knows how to treat characters. So that's why going back to this, I was very surprised with some of the things that he did with Batman. And I don't know if that was just a younger Grant Morrison kind of feeling his way around superhero comics. I don't know.
Right. Well, from my interpretation of the story, what I kind of got out of it, it worked in a weird way, because I don't think you are very much yourself when you're dreaming, but I think you're yourself but removed. That's why most of the time you don't realize you're dreaming or something like that. You're not experiencing things as you might normally, or whatever. It's kind of surreal. And the whole thing feels surreal. You can't really follow a lot. You can. It's simple. It's Batman walking through Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
But what is really going on, and just him breaking down these characters, every interaction he has is just fucking weird.
Yeah.
It's super strange. But it works.
Even Two-Face, who obviously he's a weird villain, but not as weird as some of Batman's other rogues gallery. Yeah. But even in this, they make him kind of more strange than he usually is in the regular comics.
But it's so logical.
Yeah.
What they're trying to do. It's like we're trying to wean him off of the coin. So trying to get him onto the dice, and then him jumping straight
that was cool. I like that.
Into fucking I Ching or whatever the fuck. Very complicated nonsense.
That was cool, just from the point of view of people that work at Arkham, trying to trying to figure out ways to I don't know what their real motive was either, but that was interesting.
But that's another interesting thing, what their motives are when they're treating these patients. And look at all these patients. Are they really helping? And then look at the contrast between what the modern Arkham Asylum is with the Rogues Gallery, the Joker, Zeus and Two-Face and all these crazy assholes. And fucking what Amadeus Arkham was doing. He was treating all of these patients, and then finally Mad Dog's in there, and fucking whatever, Mad Dog gets out, kills his family, and he still continues to treat him until he inevitably just fucking murders the motherfucker.
Yeah.
It's like, well, he owned the nut house, and he's a fucking lunatic. It's kind of says something about modern mental health. So what is it about Arkham that just doesn't set well with you? Like, what are some of your issues with it? Because there's a lot that's great about it, but like this is one that you've kind of always been on the fence about. Like, I definitely have a couple of Batman stories that I'm very similar. I feel kind of the same way, but what is it to you that just doesn't set well with you?
You know what? Initially, I have to blame Alan Moore.
Really?
Initially, because I remember I was getting into Batman when I was younger. I was buying everything. I was buying Year One. Sure. I was buying Dark Knight Returns. Yeah. I was buying Long Halloween. I'm getting through all the classic stories, and then for whatever reason, I was like, "Oh, I should. I guess I should get Arkham Asylum. That's on a lot of lists of stories that I should read." And then I read something by Alan Moore. It was hysterical because I know obviously him and Grant Morrison do not like each other.
Famously, are not good friends.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's just like petty artist shit. Petty. It's hilarious.
Both of them are fucking magicians, quote. It's like, what the fuck? You guys have a lot in common.
And I remember it was like I was reading an interview or something, and he said that this story he was saying that he liked Dave McKean's artwork, so it was he was like I think he was like, I forget what he said. It was like, it's like a turd wrapped with gold or something.
Really?
Meaning like
Damn.
Grant Morrison's writing was shit, but like his, Dave McKean's art was good or whatever.
There could be something to that.
So then I'm like, whatever. I'm still gonna buy it because I've been looking at it on the shelves. Like I'm gonna check it out myself.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, and this is stupid now because it didn't hit the same way as when I originally read it.
Right.
But when I originally read it, the first little interaction between Gordon and Batman I thought was really weird. I thought it was weird where he's like, "Hey, sup?" Like I read it that way, and I know it's probably not.
No, but that's also what sets it apart. What almost makes it can't be happening. You know what I mean? Like this can't be
right,
happening.
and that's why I'm thinking, reading it, all these years later, there's something to this. I think this is some weird fever dream type story. Yeah,
right.
I get that. So that's why I'm kind of giving a lot of these type of things a pass. But at the same time, so it's like that starting off, the Joker being a little too
odd.
Yeah, I don't know. That didn't really work for me because I mean, whatever, you can make characters like that. The Joker has never been like that to me in other stories that I've read, so it kind of...
Just too over the top?
Just too over the top. Like, the smacking his ass thing is weird.
It's strange.
Very
but
weird.
At the same time, it kind of makes sense because he jumps all over the place. You don't know what to believe. One minute, he's just he's a joke.
Yeah.
And then when he's being sinister, like when there is that shift... and he just sits there and glares at you. You know what I mean? Or what? He's a scary motherfucker. Like Dave McKean's art obviously kind of intensifies and kind of heightens that sense of sinister and insidiousness or whatever the hell you might say. But I kind of I understand it, and it's so black and white that. It kind of should get a pass. Like this is not the real Joker. This is a extreme form of Batman's concept of what the Joker is, as opposed to who the Joker is. You know what I mean? It's so extreme on one end of the spectrum or the other. Either he's this joyful fucking weirdo that's just fucking around in an asylum, or in a split second he turns into a fucking absolute lunatic that would fucking stab you in the neck. He's capable of anything. Because he's so unpredictable, and that's just what makes him compelling. Obviously I have a bias for this character. Like, he's one of my favorite characters ever. Like, the Joker is fantastic. But this is a weird version of the Joker, so I can understand where you're coming from, where it wouldn't quite work for you. But at the same time, it's breaking down to such, in my eyes, into such an archetype where it works. Even if it's not necessarily my idea of the Joker as well. I think of it. I don't know. Everybody kind of has their own version of this motherfucker. The only version, in my eyes, that's really not valid is Jared Leto.
What are you talking about, man? It's amazing. Yeah, so that's, I feel like he understands the Joker and then puts his own twist on it, which maybe I didn't really like. But he did understand some of the things that some of the... I don't know if it's the nurse or maybe one of the other guys that works at Arkham in this story.
Okay.
When they're explaining the Joker.
Yeah.
I don't really like Grant Morrison's whole idea where he's saying, oh, it's this form of... It's like super sanity, where it's like... He's above all this craziness, and he's. I don't like making the Joker this like superhuman.
Kind of putting him in a box.
No, just making like him a superhuman entity. Right. He is just a guy, in my mind as the character. I think he's just a guy.
So I don't.
I mean, he's crazy. He probably has a heightened intelligence, compared to other criminals. But at the end of the day, he's just a normal guy. He doesn't have superpowers. He doesn't have this super, this super sanity or whatever the fuck they say. Like, I don't agree with that.
I think they were kind of using the word super, not in a literal sense.
Yeah.
So when they say super sanity, like he's so sane that he's completely insane.
Right.
So I think that's kind of the idea, as opposed to it being a superpower.
Uh-huh.
You know, like he's just so incredibly sane, so aware in his own warped fucking way that it's completely driven him insane.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think that's the idea of super sanity, or what that concept is trying to get. It's not like Superman. You know what I mean? Where, you know, no.
But I go back and forth, too, because in that same scenario, or just those couple panels where they're describing him, they also say some things that I do agree with, where, again, I don't know if, I forget it was the nurse or whoever it was saying, every morning when he wakes up, he's a different person, basically. And I agree with that, because I feel like that jives with the comics,
the
too.
mythos.
Yeah, with the mythos. And that's true. He's you know, he'll wake up one day and do something completely different.
It's the old Killing Joke thing. You know, if he's going to have a past, he prefers it to be multiple choice.
Right.
You know, and I that concept absolutely fits in with him. Like, yeah, of course he would wake up a different person. He changes his mood in the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
You don't know if he's going to shoot you in the face or give you $1,000. You have no fucking idea. You know, I don't know. I love that character, man. I really kind of like the Arkham interpretation of it. I do, but not in. Basically, I don't know. I guess I like how it's broken down into an archetype.
Mm-hmm. That's
interesting. It's kind of bare bones. Everything is kind of bare bones about this story. Like there's no real narrative.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to bring up too, just from rereading it again, there's not. There are a couple of the villains, and Batman. You could do this almost as a stage play.
Oh yeah,
if that makes sense.
Oh, definitely.
Because there aren't. But, you know, it's a big place. Arkham's a huge place, but it feels so small, I guess.
It's kind of avant-garde in a weird way.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what he was going for, obviously, with the artwork. Like, it all fits together. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Everything they're doing together fits. Mm-hmm. It's just some of the things, I don't know if I really like it. As just fair. Kind of like, and I don't know if I'm this, like, purist Batman fan. Maybe that has to do with it a little bit.
It could be.
But yeah, it's just some of those things kind of rub me the wrong way. Also, we were talking about it before. Some of the decisions he makes, or things he doesn't do, or lets other people do. For example, and you know, I'm going to spoil it now. No, we've been spoiling everything.
You can't spoil it.
This is all spoiled. But when it's revealed, I forget the fucking guy's name again. God, I'm terrible. I should have taken notes. It's one of the employees of Arkham. You find out that he was the one that allowed everybody to
happen. Yeah.
And so whatever it isn't that long of a confrontation, but the nurse lady ends up killing him.
Yes.
In front of Batman.
Right.
And I could see that happening in a regular Batman story where she kills him. But here's the thing. In a regular Batman story, he would help her get out of it. And then he'd be like, by the way, when we're out of here, like I'm bringing you to Gordon and you're going to jail.
You're going to answer for this.
You're going to answer for this. And then I think in this book, he just kind of says like, oh, don't worry about it. He got what he deserved. And I'm like, what?
Doesn't that kind of lend itself into or infer that it's kind of a fever dream and this is not really happening?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm seeing the surreal artwork, the imagery and everything. Yeah, is this like a fantasy of like maybe this is what I wish I could do?
Well, another thing would.
But then Batman would just be in there killing people, though. So I don't know. But does he?
But is this Bruce Wayne's dream or is it Batman's dream? You know what I mean? So that's,
now we're getting deep.
Yeah, I'm totally thinking it's going to be fucking weird. I kind of think this is like a Batman fever dream, almost like a combat, or what would be like soldiers go into that weird form of combat sleep when they're over there, where they sleep for 10 minutes. Yeah. And then they're up and they look around the room and then they go back to sleep for another 10 minutes and they get up and look at like kind of just like this weird, I don't know, it's a state of mind where, and I think this is kind of something similar to that, like. It's a night where Batman can't sleep very much, you know what I mean? And the weird hour, 2 hours of sleep that he's getting these weird-ass fucking dreams, and this is just a weird kind of dream he's having over the course of a couple of hours. And it kind of reads like that, too. You know, you're picking it up. It's a graphic novel. It's when they were starting to introduce that kind of thing onto the market, and it was getting a little darker. And so it kind of reads like that in the sense that it's a story. Like, you're getting a full-fledged story. It's not like this came out in a bunch of issues, I don't think. I think when it came out, it was just Arkham Asylum. Like, it was the graphic novel, I think, as far as I know.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Because it doesn't seem like something you could break up into issues.
No, and it's not... You know what the weird thing is? It's not even on... Because I have the DC app, and that's where I've been kind of going through some of the older Batman stories,
right.
you know, and it's good to take some of the images, you know, to put them on videos.
Right.
And I don't think Arkham's on there. Because when I type in Arkham as in the search engine... all that comes up is like spin-offs from the video games, the Arkham Asylum video games.
Yeah.
It's not on there, and I actually don't know why. A lot of these kind of one-shot, off-kilter type things, out of continuity, aren't on there, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because this is a little more serious, but there's a lot of kind of mature stuff in there.
Well,
I don't know.
That was finally when that thing took a turn, really. I mean, so there's really not a whole lot going on narratively with this story, other than his interaction with the villains and stuff like that. The brief interaction with Gordon at the beginning with the crazy that, you know, there was a lot of Robin going on back then. There was a lot of Robin going up until the Death in the Family years later.
Yep.
You know, and there's no fucking Robin in the
coming
story.
soon to Batman Book Club.
Yeah.
I've already written a script. It's my whole
So
plan.
that would be cool. But, you know, that's weird. Like, there's no Robin at all. And it's probably mostly because Dave McKean he was not having it. Like, he is not fucking drawing Robin. I think that was...
Was that the actual story? Because that's funny.
So.
I never heard that.
I think Grant Morrison, he tried to... He's like, I really want Robin in here. I'm going to put him in a trench coat or something. And Dave McKean was like, fuck you.
Oh,
you
God.
know, like,
see,
not
that's why I
happening.
think maybe Grant Morrison was in a different mindset in this early in his career, because... later on in his career, he would have been like, "Nah, I'm fucking putting Robin in this," because I feel like he likes those type of characters.
But that's all. He wasn't.
From reading a lot of his stuff.
Oh, I agree.
After this,
he wasn't nearly the force of personality though that he is now. Back then,
right?
You know, and Dave McKean was fucking Dave McKean. There's no arguing about his aptitude, like his capabilities. Obviously, this is like my favorite visual. Batman story.
It's dark, man. Literally, like there were some panels where I couldn't see shit. I'm like, what the fuck?
But what
the fuck is going on here? I can't see shit.
Right. Even with the Joker, like reading his dialogue, and anytime the Joker says something,
that was another thing. That was another thing. Real quick.
Yeah.
That was another one where I'm like putting the fucking book. I'm looking at it. I'm like, I need a fucking magnifying glass. Yes. I can't read the red,
the
my
text,
God.
You know.
It was tough.
It was, but I think that is...
Does he want it to be unpleasant as a reading experience?
Yes, it's not only unpleasant, it's supposed to be kind of unintelligible, I think. And kind of hard to follow. Hard to find the logic in. And it reads like that as well. Like he's... You really can't understand what the fuck is... I don't know. I had a hard time as well.
I had to reread a lot of those, and I'm like, wait, what word is that? Especially some of the, just every once in a while, one of the words I couldn't make it out, and I'm like, what is this a complete sentence? I don't know what the fuck's going on.
That was what was cool about the script at the ass end of the book, though. On most of these,
because I didn't read it,
it's really difficult to read when you're actually looking at the panel and stuff like that, which is kind of what's cool about it. You know, like, this sucks. I remember the first couple times I read it, and I was like, God, this is kind of bothering me. This sucks. Then I started kind of understand the point behind it, I guess, or my whatever, what I took as the point. Yeah. And it worked for me. But when you read the script, it takes all that mystery out of there. It's like you fly through the fucking thing. It's like, oh, okay, this is exactly what he was saying. But
maybe I'll go back and read that for more
it's
context.
It's worth it. You know, because then you go back and you read it and you slow it down and it's back to being unintelligible, but you know what he's saying. It works for you in a weird way. At least it worked for me.
Right. Because I kind of thought of this as a type of, like a David Lynch type thing where we're discussing it this way and Grant Morrison, let's say if he was in this room right now, he would be like, oh, that's an interesting thing, but I'm not going to tell you what I envision
He's not
for this.
that guy.
He'll tell you.
I actually, I think he did a podcast with
you're
Kevin
right.
Smith.
Yep, I've listened to all those.
He's super open.
He is.
Like, he's
you know awesome. You know what? Honestly, you know, you could have your favorites, and you know, you could compare him and Alan Moore and all the weird magician stuff.
Era.
I personally think, I think Alan Moore in his early career went for like a quality over quantity.
Yes.
And I think Grant Morrison is more prolific, where he'll do a bunch of different things.
He likes to experiment a whole hell of a lot more.
But here's the thing: if you said who would you want, if you could between the two of them, who would you want to hang out with and have some beers and just hang out with for a whole night, go to a pub? I would say Grant Morrison every time, because he's at least nice. He respects other artists and shit, and I feel like Alan Moore is just like, everybody sucks, I'm the greatest.
No, I don't get that feeling from Alan Moore at all.
Maybe he just comes off that way sometimes.
I think if you look at him on the surface...
Sorry, I'm gonna crack a beer. Of course we're drinking, people, come on.
So you look at Alan Moore on the surface, he definitely comes across as some ornery old codger that couldn't be bothered and doesn't want to be bothered.
Yeah.
And I definitely can see that. But I think that's that aspect of himself is more directed at the corporation, or what comics have
and I get that
in the
now,
industry in general.
Especially nowadays too. I'm like, you're fucking right, dude.
I don't think that he would ever be that way with like fans or like probably his friends or anything like that. He's probably just Alan to most of the people.
I agree with you. And wait, by the way, before I continue, for those listening that want to know what Jake looks like, he looks exactly like Alan Moore in the 1980s. He looks like Alan Moore that just finished the script for issue 8 of Watchmen. Like, he looks like Alan Moore in the 80s. Just look up Alan Moore in the 80s. That's exactly what Jake looks like.
Honestly,
he has the same beard, the same long hair.
It's pretty close.
It's hysterical.
Yep, my hair's not as poofy. That's about the only difference.
But I get what you're saying, because I have seen interaction, and he was actually nicer back in the day when he was a younger guy in the industry.
Yes, that's before he was kind of.
I think he just got jaded.
Definitely jaded. Yeah, he's definitely he was an artist.
But anyway, I think they're both cool. I think it'd be cool if they.
But Grant Morrison is
also
he's also fucking awesome.
Dude, but that's what I mean. Like, he has a lot of. He'll talk about shit. Like, he'll talk about what he likes and doesn't like about Watchmen and stuff, and I get his point of view of stuff.
Definitely.
But yeah, anyway, it's just cool to go into that stuff, because these are all the writers that were coming up at this time, so you have to kind of put it into perspective.
Absolutely. It was just that it's like it was the British wave of heavy metal, you know what I mean? But just comic books, and that's exactly what happened with comic books.
Yeah.
The new wave of British heavy metal, in the form of the Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and the Sandman,
all that stuff,
Arkham Asylum, and Doom Patrol, and all of these crazy fucking stories. I mean, Grant Morrison is responsible for some of the coolest fucking DC stories.
Animal Man too, a lot of Vertigo stuff.
Fuck yeah.
Well, that's a whole other podcast we could do too.
Definitely,
I could bust out my omnibus of that.
Oh, Jesus Christ,
reread that
absolutely.
Shit. That's actually a quick read.
It is, but so is Arkham Asylum. Which is what's cool about it. Like, it's not a chore. Like, I feel like a lot of these...
it's not from hell.
No, it's not from hell. It's not The Dark Knight Returns, which is one that's kind of a commitment once you start with it. Like, it is just this long story.
Oh, dude, I remember the first day I bought that, I read it all in...
Oh, so did I.
Probably an hour or so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, however long it takes to read a graphic.
It takes a few hours.
It wasn't an hour, guys.
That one is a few hours.
I read it in one night, let's just say.
Well, Arkham is one you probably could smash out in 45 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not going to take you a while. But I don't know. There's something special about that. I think specifically because it's a fever dream and it's just this nightmare, and it could fit into any Batman continuity. Because of it just being this nonsense. It's fucking nonsense. It's very like he does at the beginning with the Alice in Wonderland quote. I don't want to go among mad people, but that's exactly what this is. The Alice in Wonderland.
All right, yeah, and I was gonna say, because you brought up the Alice in Wonderland stuff.
Yeah.
I think some of my favorite artwork in this is that little section with Mad Hatter.
Oh, yeah.
Because it just looks so creepy. And also, I guess it was a little bit brighter with his outfit and colors and everything, where I could see what the fuck was going on.
That's the nature of the character. Like, Jarvis Tetch is a fucking weird dude, man.
And they imply some even weirder shit in this.
Pedophile, for sure.
Oh, my God.
For sure. So like,
weird.
Fucking absolute lunatic.
Ugh.
But I can see where you're coming from. I thought some of the so a character I thought was weird was Zeus.
Yeah,
I don't know a whole hell of a lot about Zeus.
Maxie Zeus.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about.
He's basically you know what? I've grown to appreciate those type of Batman villains because it's just like a crazy guy. I love that. It's not, and I'm not talking about in the Joker sense of the
right. It's like he believed he is current in some anthropomorphic form. He thinks he is electricity or something.
He thinks he is Zeus, like
literal Zeus.
It's great, and he has henchmen that have to go by, they have to just go along with it. Right. I love that shit, honestly, because
I would like it too.
I didn't when I first started getting into Batman. I'm like, no, it all has to be serious, and it's like, no, it's all fucking silly. Right. So if you just go with it, it's more fun, and that's why I actually like. Villains like the ventriloquist and shit. It's just fun. It's cool.
Absolutely.
It's just crazy guys. You know what I mean?
Who was the one in the wheelchair?
In the wheelchair?
Yeah, he was in the wheelchair in the book. Fuck it. Was it Clayface? No, because Clayface.
See, that's where I didn't know who the fuck it because the artwork. I'm like, who the fuck is this?
They say who. I don't fucking.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
Clayface. I don't remember. It's bothering me.
It might have been, but I thought there was some electricity to it going on. At least it looked like it was very blue and
that's when they talked to Zeus. But it just, I don't know. It's a weird character. It's not one I'm really familiar. He's not in a lot of stories. You don't really hear about Maxie Zeus.
Oh, dude! I've been buying a lot of back issues from the '90s too, and. Yeah, he has some 2 or 3 part stories, and they're funny.
Yeah, I'd imagine the dude's a complete goddamn lunatic.
Yeah,
even it's just surreal when Batman finally sits there and meets the motherfucker. He's just talking about himself. That's all he's doing.
And I want to say he's in the animated series as well.
Maybe I don't remember.
God, it's been a while.
It's been a while since I have a couple of the I think seasons. DVD.
Oh, I got all 4, man.
Oh, I don't have the whole series though. I don't have the whole series. Judging me.
Well, the first 3 are the real ones, and then it goes into the new adventures.
Yeah.
And then all the costumes change, and they don't look as good.
Right.
So I was like, nah.
Yeah, fuck it.
But I mean, it's still really good episodes and everything. I just didn't like the way they changed the Joker and everything. Anyway, that's another podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
But. Yeah, so let's go into how this whole thing wraps up, because
it's weird.
It is weird,
right?
And it kind of goes to the you were saying before, very surreal. This might all be some sort of weird dream,
right? It's very Alice in Wonderland, so if you look at how Alice in Wonderland ends. It's I think it's the first one. It could it says you're all a pack of cards. And she's about to be executed. She's sentenced to be beheaded by the Queen, and she's she doesn't take it seriously. She's basically fuck you. You're just nothing but a pack of cards. Queen of Hearts, all that stuff. And she smacks, whatever the concept or whatever the hell it is, and the story fucking ends. It's all this surreal shit. She goes down this rabbit hole, and it's just weird. One weird interaction after another. And each one is more and more abstract, but they all retain some form of meaning. It's not like you're just experiencing this completely absurd series of events. They are slightly absurd, but not in the most literal of senses. Like, there is some form of meaning if you look for the logic behind what's actually being said, or the sequences of events in general. And this is kind of what's going on with this story. Like, so he just keeps interacting with one prisoner or villain after another, or patient, because it's an asylum, and it's all just a glimpse into each villain's psychology and what represents them as a character. It starts with the Joker and what he is, and then it goes into the Feast of Fools and the fact that it's all of these personalities are what form the idea of what Arkham has become. It's not just an asylum. It's more about the patients and their personalities. And that's kind of what's going on with the story in general, but especially at the end, it just ends. And it's symmetry with Alice in Wonderland. It's all just very similar. It's crazy, and then it's over. And that's kind of what it is to be in a dream, too. You know what I mean? You remember kind of what's going on in a dream, and then you don't really remember how it ends. There's no...
Or you don't, when you wake up, you... when you wake up, you don't think about it, and then like 10 minutes later you remember some of it, but not all of it.
Fragments.
Yeah.
It's just...
You think that was what he was going for, like that feeling?
Yes, and I think he was trying to stimulate some form of feeling with people, as opposed to having some compelling story happening, because it is compelling. It's interesting. What's not interesting about working your way through an asylum, but it's more about the feeling it evokes as opposed to what's actually happening. The only real confrontation in this story is him and Croc. You know what I mean?
Don't they they both stab each other?
Yeah, he stabs him with a piece of...
did he kill him? Did he... No, he almost throws him off the fucking balcony or whatever.
Right. Yeah, that's literally it. Everything else is just him, Batman talking.
And then
people.
I thought Batman gets stabbed. I'm like, this is why nothing really makes sense. And then he's fine. You turn the page, and now he's leaving.
So do you really like?
Well, that's not the specific order.
Morrison's interpretation of Batman in this story, or does it not work for you at all?
It was. I feel like there wasn't anything to latch onto. Like I said, there were some things that I didn't. He was just an observer. It was weird.
Right.
He's just kind of there, and I guess that's what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But some of the things he said is, well, Batman wouldn't do that. That's my thing. When I read a story, I go, Batman wouldn't do that. Batman wouldn't do this.
It's fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Batman wouldn't do that.
But I don't know. I liked his interpretation evolved, obviously, because then when he gets to JLA, his Batman is Bat God. You know what I mean? Yeah, go ahead, crack one. Crack it. Are you cracking a beer? All right. And I know I've heard some people talk about that and criticize that too. And I guess I get it, because it's kind of... You want to think that all these stories are in a continuity together. And I'm not really talking about Arkham Asylum.
Right.
But it's different when you see Batman in the JLA as opposed to in his own stories. Because in his own stories, he could be having a problem, fighting this big guy that just happens to be a criminal. And he's not a supervillain or whatever. And he's like, wow, this guy, you get the thought bubbles. He's like, this guy's fucking huge. I trained for years and years, but this guy's giving me a problem right now. It's a very street level thing.
Yeah.
And then you have the Grant Morrison Batman in JLA that's fucking has a contingency plan for everything, and he's Bat-God. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Which is actually cool, and it works in the stories,
awesome.
But I guess you have to just separate those things, and that's why maybe I should just separate this too. It's its own thing. It's its own entity.
It's autonomous. I think it was intended to be autonomous to a certain degree. I don't know. You don't really hear any reference of this story anywhere. There's nothing really to continue on with the idea of what Arkham Asylum really was. I think that's because it was such a self-contained thing.
Yeah, I think really the only element that anybody took was the video game, which has nothing to do with this.
No, not
the
at
only
all.
thing is like, yo,
Right.
shit's going down at Arkham. The
you're
Joker's loose, like everybody's loose. You got to go there and figure it out.
Right.
That was pretty much the only inspiration I think they took from it.
Pretty much.
Because then it gets very, very surreal.
Oh, definitely.
And that video game was very straightforward, which was smart for them to do because...
Yeah. Granted, they had Paul Dini and all that stuff involved, which you can't go wrong with Paul Dini.
Exactly.
You know, like, come on, that's fucking awesome.
Exactly. So, yeah, it was just weird to me where... Yeah, it ended very... It was a very abrupt ending, but I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, he's getting out. Because that guy who was... the one guy that worked at Arkham was fucking... I think he, like, had that girl hostage.
Right.
Then he gets killed. So that's pretty much the end of the, you know, whatever you want to call it, the mystery.
There was
all
no
this
mystery,
shit. I know there
yes.
isn't, but like, oh, I'm the guy that did this.
No detective work to be had in Arkham
Because I guess
Asylum.
you didn't really even need that, I guess, because I could have just believed that Joker got himself out somehow.
Yeah.
You know, with
How
his...
many times has he done that?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my god, it's a revolving door at Arkham Asylum.
Right.
The security is fucking horrible.
Yeah, so in that sense, it wasn't... I didn't mean to say mystery, but it's like, I'm the guy, but it seemed like...
Right, like it says, fucking Arkham Asylum, don't pick up hitchhikers. You know?
It was a story element of a mystery story that just didn't have to be in there. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
I was the one who read, like, he's found a different room. He found a secret room
Yeah,
where he
but
read
it was,
a lot of his stuff. And that's
yeah.
how it brings his story into
Right.
the present
that
day.
was Amadeus Arkham's room, you know?
Right.
Yeah, and he was scribing the fucking incantations and stuff like that in the floor with his fingernails and
Right.
shit. Like, it was fucking
So
crazy
once,
motherfucker.
so once that's all done, it's so weird at the end because Joker, you're like, okay, yeah, it kind of tricked me for a second because I'm going through the pages and I'm reading it and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they figured everything out and Gordon's there and Batman's gonna leave, but then you're like, wait a minute, Joker is just like seeing them off. All right, guys, thanks for coming. I'm gonna
Yeah, pretty much.
get home safe, and you're like, whoa, wait, what?
But
So what the fuck is that ending? Unless I missed something, because it's just
No,
like...
but I think that's in the nature of the story that's being told. You know, it's abrupt. Everything that's happening is abrupt and kind of distinct in and of itself. It's just this weird sequence of events, and it has to end. So
Right.
all of the conversations happening, all of these interactions with people, they're all really brief. They're a page or two long. You know, it's like he sees him in the asylum, and then he's gone, and he's off to seeing some other crazy motherfucker in the asylum. It's going to end very similar. You know, it's like there's no reason to drag this out. You know, he was in the asylum, he worked through the asylum, and now that dream, that nightmare is over. You know, like there was nothing to really solve. What happened kind of solved itself. You know, there was a problem. One of the guards let something happen. The doctor was involved in some weird way. The doctor, the chick, whatever she is, she fucking kills him, and that's it. There's no other crime. There's no other story. He's in an asylum. Of course, the Joker and all those crazy motherfuckers are in there. It's just a little chaotic right now.
Right.
It's gonna resolve itself, and it'll go back to normal, and then the cycle will go through and repeat itself again.
But who's like... Joker's just there. He's free. So what's eventually gonna... You know, I know this is a one-shot, but like, just if you were thinking about this,
Right.
who's gonna set it, like, who's gonna set him straight? Who's gonna get him back? And should he escape? Is he just staying there? Why does Batman just let him go? It's a weird ending.
Because he's already where he's going to end up. You know, he's going to end up in the asylum, so it's just a matter of the authorities, or the people in power, retaking control of that. And if they're already in a space like that, somewhere where they can control quickly, it will solve itself. There was no reason for Batman to be there. You know, by the time Batman's walking out, I would imagine Jim Gordon were the ones and all them. The GCPD sent Batman there in the first place. They've got to be outside.
But didn't he just leave with Gordon? They're like, all right, peace out.
Probably, but what I don't know if they realize there's some mass breakout or there's something crazy going on like that. Obviously, the authorities are going to be there. You know, they're not going to go in there and interfere with Batman because that would the concept of that would interfere with Batman's story, the dream, the rhythm of the events that are happening.
Right.
So that's kind of how I justified it. I don't know if it's true because it's kind of open-ended and shit. But
I think that's what, Grant Morrison probably wanted people to think about this shit and do, an hour-long podcast on it, obviously.
Exactly, yeah. Probably been talking about the story longer than it is actually read the story.
Yeah. Longer than it takes to read it. But that's, you could say what you want about it, and there's... Obviously, we have some differing opinions on it,
Definitely.
but we've just been talking about it for this long, so there's got to be something to it, whether you like it or not. So
absolutely.
So that's that's saying something about it. And Grant Morrison has, since this book, which was a huge hit, by the way.
Oh yeah.
I think this thing sold so many fucking copies.
It was one of those defining stories in the '80s, where it just during that shift,
it was huge.
It was a template. It was the archetype of what inevitably Batman would become. Because Grant Morrison owned the 90s, with just JLA and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, he owned the character. Like, it was awesome. It was Frank Miller. You had Alan Moore with The Killing Joke and stuff like that. But then it was really just fucking Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
Like, he is the shit, man. He's awesome.
Yeah, that's the thing is, I like a lot of everything he did after this. I like a lot more.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it was still cool, and it was interesting to go back to this, and it was kind of like a 50-50 thing. I reading it, I'm like, that's pretty cool. I fucking like, because I like dark shit too, but I'm like, but not with like Batman's morality. It's just like I had a lot of conflicting thoughts.
Absolutely,
while I was reading it.
But is that the sign of a good story?
Yeah. It was cool, and I guess I have to just think of it, like I said before, just as its own entity.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's autonomous. It's very isolated, like most of the good Batman stories of the '80s. Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
very isolated event. In the continuity of Batman,
and it's not. It's kind of just out of it. It's in its own.
Right. Batman's an old man. You know what I mean? Like, it just changed Batman. The Killing Joke. Very isolated story.
That's the thing is, it's totally isolated. It's like this one-off, And you know what's funny? And that's actually kind of has to do with what we're talking about, because we're talking about Grant Morrison.
Well, absolutely.
Grant Morrison has a fucking brilliant take on it when he talks about it. Because I never understood the ending of that, and we can go into this deeper if we ever do a book club on Killing Joke. But he's saying, because I always hated that ending where Batman starts laughing.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck is this? What's going on? Grant Morrison was saying when it fades, and I it's been a little bit since I read it, but when it fades down to different panels or whatever, he's like, that's the end, because you see Joker stop laughing. It's like, that is the moment he broke Batman, he killed him. Well, that was his interpretation of it, and I think he's probably right.
Well, my interpretation is kind of similar, but I kind of looked at it. It's like the Joker finally told the joke that the Batman found funny.
Really? I think he just was like, I'm going a little nuts.
The Joker is somebody who's telling, in his mind, he's always trying to tell a joke. He's always trying to get at a punchline. He's always trying to drive that. And the one person he could never really get a laugh out of, in his mind, his own warped sense of reality, was Batman. And I think that was the one time in that weird context where he finally just up and told the joke because he was under one impression or another, and he got some form of emotional response from the Batman.
Well, I think it's like, when he says all it takes is one bad day to whatever.
Yes.
I think in Grant Morrison's analysis of it, Batman was the one, not Jim Gordon. Batman was the one that had that bad day, and he cracked, and that's when he starts laughing, and then he chokes him to death. That was kind of his interpretation.
So it's finally the one where he breaks his moral code, and
that was like the end of it.
So I kind of,
and then it's funny because they made it
that.
canon.
Yeah,
they made it canon because they made Barbara Gordon into Oracle because she was paralyzed and all that shit.
I like that. I always liked Oracle.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just crazy how all this shit
everything's
together.
isolated, but it's kind of cohesive in some weird way. It would work. Like you could put The Killing Joke and Arkham Asylum in the same continuity.
But that's what we were saying before. Grant Morrison can, and that was on what you were saying, like one of those Kevin Smith podcasts or whatever. Yeah. He can analyze that and take his feelings out of the situation. Right. He's not going to be like, in that interview, he wasn't like, Al Moore's a fucking dickhead.
No.
Like, I hate him. He just weird. Said what he thought about the story.
Yes.
And I feel like Al Moore is incapable of doing that.
The only time
he'd be like, he sucks.
He was being disingenuous was, I think, when he was describing like The Watchmen. It's like The Watchmen is undisputable greatness. Like you could not like The Watchmen. That's fine if people could find problems with it, but just how kind of dismissive I remembered him being of the story. Like, oh, I had a problem with this and this and that. It's like,
I get it.
Fuck you. Did you read the goddamn? This was the 80s. Everybody was so happy, and then finally this fucking story comes out, and there's just something to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Other than that, I agree. He can kind of remove himself
from
for the
most
like
part,
that.
Yeah.
And,
but he can also say his opinions on shit, and that's fine. Yeah. And I get where he's I think he's coming from it in just a pure comic book superhero stance.
Yes.
Because, and I'm not the first person to say this, but I guess you could put Dark Knight in there too, but Watchmen, they both had this, I don't know, it was kind of like a subversion of superheroes and put them in a more, I don't know, real world setting or like this is the real things. It was darker. It was less optimistic. It was grounded and all those stupid words that everybody that makes movies about these fucking things does.
I know.
That was the problem with it because everybody tried to imitate that, and they didn't mean they were doing it as their one-off stories. Right. So that was fine to do, just kind of like Arkham. That's why I'm giving him that a pass too.
Yeah, like Dave Mckean.
But in the actual continuity, they didn't want that to happen, but then that seeped into the main continuity where everything was darker and blah blah blah.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, but it definitely an interesting read to read again. It was cool. It's one of those things where you look at the art and it makes me, like, as a musician, I take influence from different things. So when I read a comic like that and I look at the art, where I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to make something that sounds like this looks. You know what I mean? Like something dark like this.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, really cool to read and look at again, just flip through.
Definitely.
A lot of cool stuff.
So is it Ron recommended?
Well, I would definitely recommend reading it. Yeah, I'm not going to put it on Ron Recommends. This is a freaking Batman book club, dude.
I know. But
I guess everything I put on Batman book club is recommend. Like, you should read it and come up with your own conclusions.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely.
It's
one of those stories, too. It kind of lends itself to that. Everybody has their own interpretation. You know, it's a lot of those stories.
So, just maybe final thoughts before we wrap this up, because I think we pretty much went over everything we wanted to say about this, which was great. Absolutely. It was actually... It was... Honestly, for me, more fun talking about it than reading it.
Really?
Like, I mean, I look, I didn't hate it.
Yeah.
Not your favorite. Not my favorite Batman story, but definitely interesting.
No, that's exactly it. People could say what they will, but it stands on its own two legs.
Yeah.
There is a place for it. There's a discussion to be had. So it's like, it could be bad, it could be good. There's a discussion there. I don't know. I enjoyed the fuck out of it. It's probably my favorite Batman story. So I appreciate you.
Really?
It really, comic book in the way. A lot of it has to do with Dave Mckean and just that aspect of it, but also the simplicity of the story. And just it's amorphous. It's really kind of arbitrary. It's really left up to the judgment
of
whoever the fuck is reading it. And I like that aspect of it. It's not a conventional Batman story, but I guess I tend to lean more towards the unconventional in that degree. But it's good. Dave McKean's art in this is the fucking best. Like, hands down, it's fucking amazing. And you could tell he hated doing it, which I liked about it. So, you just totally took him out of his comfort zone. But I don't know. I appreciated you having me on the podcast. It was fun talking about this.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we're going to do more just in general on the Ron Reviews channel.
Definitely.
Just about all genre stuff, sci-fi stuff. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff. But we wanted to, every once in a while, I'm going to have you on the Batman Book Club section of this channel because it's going to be fun to bring you in on some of these stories to get your thoughts on it, especially some of the ones that we kind of disagree on, which is good.
That's the most fun.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure.
And I think I've like I said, I've written a couple scripts for some of the in continuity Batman stories.
So what's the next one you have down the pipeline?
The next one I think is Long Halloween.
Awesome.
Because I wrote the script for that. So I'm going to go through all the Long Halloween stuff, like in the sequels and all that.
Cool.
And then we'll get into some of the more main continuity stuff again.
Excellent.
And then some of the,
different
ones, not the regular continuity stuff.
Yeah.
Jake will come back in on. But yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
always fun doing this. And we'll see you guys next time. Be sure to like and subscribe and get in on this with us. It's fun. And we'll be back next time with another Batman story. So we'll see you later.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material, and most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.